As a part of the course in hard-soft sensors in process measurement, a case project 2 automated greenhouse has been accomplished in spring semester of 2017 by Adis Pipic and Kasper Johansen. Today we will present the project with the following agenda. I will start the presentation with introduction, system overview, PNID, and fuzzy logic design, and Kasper will continue with talking about neural network design, application created in LabVIEW, results, discussion, and end the presentation with the conclusion. Case Project 2 encompasses design, implementation, and testing of a miniature automated greenhouse system, as we can see the picture of here. This project is a continuation from the Case Project 1, done last year with the focus of implementing the techniques of fuzzy logic and neural networks that were covered in the class during the spring semester of 2017. This is the overview of the automated greenhouse system. The block diagram shows all the major software and hardware components in the automated greenhouse system. In order to advance the project, the system has been expanded by adding several new sensors and actuators. We've implemented a peristaltic pump that is controlled by a soil moisture sensor via a transistor to provide irrigation to the plant. A fan has also been installed to provide ventilation of the greenhouse system. To monitor the water level in our reservoir, an ultrasonic sensor has also been added to the system. As an extra feature in the greenhouse system, a LED strip has also been installed at the roof of the greenhouse to add a light source. This is done to manipulate the light conditions and monitor the effects changing light has on the plant. The light is controlled by a simple on-off virtual switch in the LabVIEW. Peristaltic pump and the LED strip are powered from a standard 230 volt socket outlet, while the fan runs only on 5 volt DC and thus gets powered directly from the Arduino. Additionally, a CO2 detector has been added to the system to monitor the CO2 and see the effects of CO2 on the plant. CO2 measurement has also been used as a variable input to the neural network. Since our aim with the project was to design a fully automated system that would have graphical features with trend logging and give the operator the possibility to interact with the system, it quickly became apparent that using only Arduino platform would not be sufficient. For this purpose, we have added the LabVIEW as an additional software platform. The raw sensor measurements from the Arduino are sent via a serial channel into the LabVIEW and used for control and monitoring of the system. However, the main goal of the Case Project 2 was to explore the techniques of fuzzy logic and neural networks on automation systems. We have therefore implemented 2 fuzzy controllers in LabVIEW and a neural network in MATLAB. LabVIEW in the system acts as a central software platform through which the neural network in the MATLAB and Arduino are interacting. Fuzzy controller 1, shown here, is used to control the ventilation of the greenhouse. Inputs into the controller are humidity and temperature measurements. And the third input is a difference between the measured temperature and predicted temperature by the neural network that comes in here. This extra input from the neural network is added to provide the controller with the ability to predict the next measured temperature is going to be colder or hotter than the previous one, and thus adjust the fan accordingly. The control output from the fuzzy controller is a percentage of a fan duty cycle, which goes into a timer that calculates appropriate working time for the fan is calculated. Fuzzy controller 2, shown here, regulates the irrigation of the plant by controlling the pump. It functions in a similar way to fuzzy controller 2, but it's a simpler controller that only has one input and one output. The measured soil moisture in the pot is the crisp input going into the fuzzy controller. The output from the fuzzy controller 2 is the percentage of the pump duty cycle. The controller has also a timer that allows the pump to only run at certain point during the day. This is mainly done to avoid unnecessary stress on the pump and exaggerated watering of the plant, which is harmful. Neural network has 5 inputs and is based on that predicts the future temperature. Casper will cover the details of the neural network functionality later in the presentation. This is the PNID that we have used from the case project 1, where we have added the extra sensors as shown in the diagram. We have also added alarm limits for some of our measurements, namely the water reservoir, which has LEDs indicating low alarm and high alarm that blinks in the LabVIEW front panel. CO2 sensor is shown here and is added to update the PNID according to the new system in the case project 2. We have also added an interlock between the humidity and temperature transmitter and the fan that has been added to the system. Wiring diagram has also been updated with newly added sensors. The control of all the actuators are done via transistors are shown here. As mentioned before, automatic greenhouse system has 2 fuzzy logic controllers that control ventilation of the greenhouse and irrigation of the plant. Both controllers have been designed in Fuzzy System Designer, which is a toolkit in LabVIEW. Here we see the membership functions for the fuzzy ventilation controller. Ventilation controller is a so-called multiple input and single output system. The crisp inputs to the controller are measured temperature shown here, with specific linguistic hedges for the indicating very low, comfortable, hot, and very hot temperatures. The range is chosen to be between 10 to 15 degrees, which is a temperature that we can reasonably expect in the greenhouse system. The second input is humidity, which has a range in percentages, measured humidity percentages from 0 to 100%. Humidity is classified by 3 linguistical hedges: dry, damp, and wet. The third membership graph shows the membership functions for the third linguistic variable, which is a difference between measured temperature and predicted temperature. The negative linguistic hedge, neutral and positive. The negative linguistic hedge is classified as the temperature that are lower than the previous, while the neutral indicates the temperature that are the same as previous, and the positive is are the temperatures, classification of the temperatures that are higher than the previous. This is the output membership functions that indicate the fan running time. Fan ventilation controller output is classified by 5 linguistic hedges that indicate very low, medium, high, and very high fan running time. This is the rule base for the ventilation controller that describes the relationship between the input and output linguistic variables based on their linguistic terms. You can see that the rule base is set so that ventilation is high during the high temperatures and low temperatures. Predicted temperatures and humidity are also used to fine-tune the ventilation time within the different temperature ranges. This is the membership functions for the linguistic input variable and the output variable. The irrigation controller is a simpler type of controller than the ventilation controller because it's a single input and single output controller. The input, the crisp input in the irrigation controller is the soil moisture measured in percentages, and is classified by 5 linguistic hedges, either as very dry, damp, medium, or wet. The output from the irrigation controller is a pump running time as the percentage, which is basically a percentage of the pump duty cycle. The pump duty cycle, the pump running time is either defined as low, medium, or high, and there is also extra linguistic hedges added as off and on, which basically means that if the soil moisture measurement is below 15%, then the pump will stay completely off. Then the pump will be on, which means that the pump will run full 100% of the pump duty cycle time. Otherwise, if the soil moisture measurement is above 50%, the pump will shut completely down and not work at all in the ranges, soil moisture ranges between 50 and 100%. Here we see the rule base created for the pump or irrigation controller. One important thing to note is that the falsification method chosen for both irrigation controller and the ventilation controller is a center of area method. When the choice of the falsification method was made, one important aspect was taken into consideration is continuity of the output signal. The falsification method is regarded as continuous if an arbitrary small change of an input value never causes an abrupt change in the output signal. Since our chosen output membership functions were overlapping, the best choice in order to provide a continuous controller output characteristics were center of area method. The effect of center of area method on the controller output function can be noticed with the test system in the fuzzy system designer. This is the test system in the fuzzy system designer in LabVIEW, and we can see here the characteristic output function that is basically between 0 and 50% soil moisture measurements. This means that this is basically our control interval. When I change the input values here, we can see that the output value is following the characteristic output function, and we don't get really abrupt changes in the output value. Here we see how the output values are changing pretty smoothly following the output characterization function.
This is our LabVIEW application. Here's a PNID overview of our system. This PNID overview also contains the real-time measurements from the Arduino. The actuator outputs can also be viewed as Boolean indicators. We also have a graph which can be used to display all the measurements. Here is the connection tab. Here is the connection to the Arduino, baud rate. There's the write buffer, which is the data that's being parsed into a string and sent to the Arduino. Here's the read buffer, which when Labby receives a string from Arduino, it appears here. And if it's valid, it's parsed into this array. If it's valid, depends on whether it has the proper start key and the proper end key. Here's the control tab. This tab is responsible for switching between manual and auto mode. If it's in manual mode, you can turn the actuators off and on. Here's the measurements file. You can enable it. Here's the file path. And here's the header. Here's the fuzzy logic controller's outputs. Temperature prediction output from the neural network, accumulated light, and here's the time in integers. Here's the loading of the fuzzy logic controllers. The neural network we ended up implementing is a NARCS network. It has a very good structure for predicting time series data, as it mixes the inputs, which in this case are the other measurements, and the output of some fuzzy logic controllers with the inputs, which in this case is temperature. It then runs these through weights and biases and into neurons. There are 3 neurons in the hidden layer, as indicated here, where all of these have tan sigmoid activation function. After the hidden layer, it goes to the output layer, here with the weights and biases in the output neuron. This is a single neuron, which then goes through a linear activation function and then predicts the next temperature for the next time step, which in this case is 5 minutes ahead of time. Here's the structure of the network in a little bit more detail. Here are the inputs, and here is the target or output. You see that all of them are also delayed, so a delayed version goes also into the network. Here are the hidden layer neurons, going to the hidden layer tan sigmoid activation function, to the output layer neuron, and the output layer linear activation function. So we decided to implement the Leeuwenberg-Marquardt method. We tested both the Leeuwenberg-Marquardt and the Bayesian regularization method. They gave very similar results. So we ended up with these training statistics. See here that the stopping criterion is validation, set to 6 validation checks. That's the main reason the training was found optimal at this point. Seen from the graph that it reduces the mean squared error. After this, the validation plot starts rising in error again. So that training gave us this time series response. See that there isn't that much error. It has an amplitude of +2 and -2. And the regression lines, you see here that it's pretty much straight in all the plots. 0.9954 for the combined regression plots. That's almost 1. So here's the result for our fuzzy logic controllers. The first graph and the purple line shows the output of the irrigation controller. whereas the blue line shows the reaction or response in soil moisture content. You see that each time the controller puts out water, the response is a peak, an increase in soil moisture. The same thing with this plot. Here the green one is humidity, and the blue one is temperature, and the black one is the output of the ventilation controller. You see that when it gets hot, the controller is acting very much. When it gets cold, the controller is shut down. It manages to keep the humidity between 35 and 50%. It's not that good with the temperature. It should be within 30 to 20. So this controller needs tuning. Here's the light controller, which is an on-off controller based on the time of day. It takes the integrated light for each day, which is reset at midnight. And if it hasn't passed the set point of 8000, it will turn it on until it does. So here the cyan line is the controller and the red one is the light. Set it all and it turns on later in the day. Here is the response for the integration of these peaks. See that it almost hits 8000 every time. And here's the online temperature prediction. We see that, like in the train network, there isn't that much of a deviation. This one actually has less deviation than the train network. It's an max amplitude of almost minus 1.5 and almost positive 2. It's pretty much accurate. See that there, when the graph is going down, we see that it tries to predict a little bit before it happens. So that is good. Yeah. Further controller tuning is certainly necessary for both the ventilation controller and the physiology controller. And we don't really know if the prediction added anything positive to the ventilation controller. This should be tested. We don't really know if low frequency pulse width modulation is optimal as the control signal. Maybe it should be a change in voltage instead of low frequency pulse width modulation. The soil moisture sensor was also a subject to corrosion, and the set point went down. Yeah, the calibration coefficients went down as the system was active. Yeah, so a measurement system has been designed and built with integrated physiology controllers for soil moisture and temperature. We also made a neural network temperature predictor. An application was made in LabVIEW, which used both the power of MATLAB for the neural network and the power of the Arduino to control the actuators and read the sensor data. And a graphical user interface was made in LabVIEW.